Hey everyone, welcome to Rise and Thrive. I'm Shay Blackman, and if you're watching this on December 31st, you're ending 2025 with me, and more importantly, you're preparing to step into 2026 with a completely different energy. Here's what I want you to think about as we close out this year. How many times in 2025 did you walk into a room and immediately start calculating your value? How many times did you sit in a meeting thinking, am I good enough to be here? Do they see what I bring? Should I speak up or will I sound like I'm doing too much? If you're nodding right now, you're not alone. This is the exhausting mental loop so many of us as Black women in professional spaces run on repeat. We've been conditioned to constantly prove our value, to justify our seat at the table, to demonstrate our worth, to work twice as hard for half the recognition. But here's the truth that Alice Walker gave us decades ago. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Think about that for a second. We're not losing power because someone took it from us. We're giving it away every single time we enter a space questioning whether we belong there. So today, in this very first episode of the Rise and Thrive series, we're starting at the foundation. Chapter 1 of my book, Rise and Thrive, A Black Woman's Blueprint for Leadership Excellence, is all about understanding your value proposition. Not the corporate buzzword version of value proposition, the real one. The one that's rooted in your lived experience, your unique perspective, your strategic brilliance that you've been carrying around like it's ordinary when it's actually extraordinary. And as we step into 2026, this couldn't be more timely. We're watching organizational shakeups, layoffs, restructuring, and in many cases, companies backpedaling on commitments they made to diversity and inclusion. In this climate, knowing your value isn't just nice to have, it's survival, it's strategy, it's power. So let's talk about how to identify, articulate, and leverage what you already bring to every table you sit at. Let me start with a scenario I've seen play out hundreds of times in my 24 years of HR leadership. There's a company, a mid-sized manufacturing firm, going through a leadership transition. They need someone to step into a VP of operations role. On paper, there are two strong candidates. One is a white male manager who's been with the company for 5 years, consistently meets expectations, has strong relationships with the executive team. The other is a Black woman manager, also 5 years, but she's exceeded targets every year, successfully navigated a plant closure and staff transition, mentored 3 people who've been promoted, and has a reputation for solving problems others can't even see coming. When it came time for interviews, guess what happened? The male candidate walked in talking about his vision for the future, his leadership philosophy, his readiness for the role. The Black woman candidate, she spent most of her time providing evidence, justifying, explaining, almost apologizing for taking up space in the conversation. She got the job barely because her results were undeniable, but she worked 3 times harder to communicate half the confidence. This is what I mean when I talk about not understanding your value proposition. It's not that she didn't have value. She had more measurable value than her competitor, but she hadn't internalized it. She hadn't translated her accomplishments into a clear, confident narrative about who she is as a leader. And here's why this happens to us more often than we want to admit. First, we've been socialized to downplay our accomplishments. From the time we were young Black girls, we heard, "Don't be too loud, don't brag, let your work speak for itself." That might sound like wisdom, but in corporate America, silent excellence gets overlooked. Your work doesn't speak for itself when there are 10 other people narrating their own work loudly in the room. Second, we carry what I call the burden of proof mindset. Because we've experienced being questioned, doubted, and underestimated, we go into every interaction ready to defend our presence. Instead of showing up as the authority we are, we show up as defendants in a trial we didn't even know we were on trial for. Third, and this is critical, most of us have never been taught to articulate value the way our white counterparts have. They learn this language early. They practice it in college, in networking events, in family dinner conversations. For many of us, the first time someone asks, "What's your value proposition?" we freeze. We know we're valuable, we just don't have the language to express it in the terms corporate spaces expect. Here's what's at stake when you don't understand your value proposition. You negotiate poorly because you're not sure what you're worth. You don't advocate for promotions because you're waiting to be ready enough. You let credit for your ideas go to someone else because you're grateful just to be included. You accept roles that underutilize your skills because you're not clear on what your skills even are. And you burn out trying to prove something that should have been understood from day one. Alice Walker's words hit different when you realize this. Thinking you don't have power is itself the thing stripping you of power. So how do we break this cycle? In Chapter 1 of Rise and Thrive, I break down value proposition into three essential components: your technical expertise, your relational capital, and your strategic perspective. Let me walk you through each one. Component 1, technical expertise. This is the easy part for most of us because it's measurable. Your technical expertise is the hard skills you've developed: project management, data analysis, financial modeling, compliance knowledge, whatever your field requires. These are the things you can put on a resume, the certifications you've earned, the trainings you've completed. But here's where Black women often stop. We list our skills and think that's enough. It's not. Technical expertise without context is just a list of things you can do. You need to translate those skills into outcomes. Instead of saying, I'm skilled in change management, you say, I led a restructuring that retained 94% of key talent during a merger. See the difference? One is a skill. The other is value. Component 2, relational capital. This is where most of us undervalue ourselves significantly. Relational capital is your ability to navigate relationships, build coalitions, and influence outcomes through connection. It's not about being liked, it's about being strategically connected. Think about the times you've been the bridge between departments that weren't communicating, the times you've de-escalated conflicts that could have derailed projects, the times you've brought people to the table who weren't originally included. That's relational capital. And in most organizations, that's what separates good leaders from great ones. As Black women, we often do this relational work invisibly. We smooth over tensions. We translate between different communication styles. We bring people along who might otherwise be left behind. And then we don't count it as part of our value because it feels soft compared to hitting a sales target or launching a product. But here's the truth. Organizations fall apart without relational capital. Projects fail, talent leaves, cultures become toxic, all because someone didn't have the relational intelligence to hold things together. Component 3, strategic perspective. This is your secret weapon, and I'm going to spend the most time here because this is where your lived experience as a Black woman becomes a strategic asset instead of something you have to overcome. Strategic perspective is your ability to see around corners, anticipate challenges others miss, and understand the second and third order effects of decisions. And you have this in abundance, not in spite of being a Black woman, but because of it. You've spent your entire professional life reading rooms most people don't have to read. You've learned to code switch, to anticipate bias, to navigate power dynamics that are invisible to people with more privilege. You've developed what I call dual consciousness, the ability to see both the formal organization and the informal one, both the stated values and the actual behaviors, both what's being said and what's being left unsaid. That's not trauma to overcome. That's strategic intelligence to leverage. When you walk into a room and immediately assess who has real power versus who has titles, that's strategic perspective. When you see a new initiative and immediately spot the 3 ways it could go sideways because of cultural dynamics, that's strategic perspective. When you understand that the key to getting buy-in isn't the logic of your argument, but the relationships you've built with stakeholders, that's strategic perspective. And the most powerful thing, most of your colleagues don't have this. They're operating with one lens. You're operating with multiple. That makes you more valuable, not less. So here's how this actually works when you put it together. Let's go back to that VP of Operations candidate I mentioned earlier. Imagine if she had walked into that interview with a clear value proposition. I bring a unique combination of technical excellence in operations management, proven relational capital that stabilizes teams during transition, and strategic perspective that allows me to anticipate and mitigate risks others don't see until they're already problems. In my current role, this translated into 3 consecutive years of exceeding production targets while improving employee retention by 23% and reducing safety incidents by 60%. I don't just manage operations, I transform them. That's a value proposition. It's specific, it's confident, it's backed by evidence but not apologetic. It connects who she is to what she delivers to what the organization needs. Now, think about your own career. What happens when you understand your value proposition this clearly? You negotiate differently. Instead of asking for what you think they might give you, you state what you're worth based on the value you create. You advocate for yourself differently. Instead of waiting for someone to notice your good work, you proactively communicate how your work advances organizational goals. You choose opportunities differently. Instead of taking whatever's offered, you assess whether the role actually leverages your unique value or just checks a diversity box. You show up differently. Instead of entering spaces wondering if you belong, you enter knowing exactly what you bring that no one else in the room has. This is what Alice Walker meant about power. The power was always there. You just had to recognize it. As we move into 2026, I want you to think about this as your foundation. Everything else we're going to cover in this Rise and Thrive series, navigating corporate cultures, building strategic networks, overcoming imposter syndrome, negotiating for advancement, all of it is built on this one principle. You have to know your value before you can leverage it. So here's your homework as we close out 2025 and step into the new year. First, do an honest assessment. Pull out a piece of paper and write down your 3 strongest areas of technical expertise, 3 examples of your relational capital in action, and 3 times your strategic perspective changed an outcome. Don't edit yourself. Don't minimize. Just write. Second, practice articulating it. Say it out loud. Practice your value proposition in the mirror on a voice note with a trusted friend. Get comfortable hearing yourself claim your value without apology. Third, start using it. The next time someone asks what you do, don't just give them your title. Give them your value proposition. The next time you're in a performance review or salary negotiation, lead with value, not requests. And here's the truth I need you to hear before we close this out. You are not going to wake up tomorrow feeling 100% confident in your value. This is a practice. It's a discipline. It's something you're going to have to choose every single day, especially on the days when the world is telling you you're not enough. But that's exactly why we're doing this work together. Because when you know your value, no one can take it from you. When you articulate your value, no one can ignore it. And when you leverage your value, no one can stop you. So here we are at the end of 2025, and I want to thank you for being here for this launch episode. This series is going to be different from a lot of leadership content you've seen before. We're not doing surface level motivation. We're doing deep strategy rooted in real experience. Every Wednesday for the next year, we're going to work through all 10 chapters of Rise and Thrive together, bringing you frameworks, real talk, and the kind of honest conversation you don't always get in corporate spaces. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do. First, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any episodes. Second, download the free Shield Resilience Strategy Guide. It's a practical toolkit to help you protect your energy and sanity while navigating corporate spaces as a Black woman leader. The link is in the description. Third, if you haven't already, grab a copy of Rise and Thrive, a Black woman's blueprint for leadership excellence. This episode is just scratching the surface of Chapter 1. There's so much more depth in the book. And if you're someone who wants to bring this kind of culture transformation to your organization, let's talk. I work with Michigan companies as a fractional HR leader, helping them build high-value cultures where people like us can actually thrive. Check out my services at shayblackman.com. Before I go, I want to leave you with this thought. 2026 can be the year you stop questioning your value and start leveraging it. It can be the year you walk into rooms as the authority you already are. It can be the year you negotiate for what you're worth, advocate for the opportunities you deserve, and build the kind of career that reflects your actual talent instead of other people's limited perception. But it starts right here, with understanding your value proposition. So here's my question for you, and I want you to drop it in the comments. What's one skill, experience, or quality you bring to your work that you rarely articulate out loud? Let's start 2026 by owning our value together. I'm Shay Blackman, and I'll see you next Wednesday for episode 72, where we're diving into Chapter 2, Navigating Corporate Cultures with Strategic Intelligence. Until then, remember, you already have the power. Now go use it.